always thought there was more to life. I went to, like I said, a Catholic school. We went to church. And as I got older and I started understanding what they were doing with the incense and the prayers and all of the things they were doing, I started asking some questions, in junior high and high school. I wanted to know, I said, well, we were taught that you went and told your sins to the priest, and then he forgave you for God. And this is where growing up away from religion, I think, made me a little different than my classmates. They had, from kindergarten, well, way before that, from the time they were babies and went to church every Sunday and all that. And I hadn't. So I had not been properly indoctrinated into the religion's ideas. So anyway, I started asking questions. And the one that really, really threw me was, okay, there's that priest up there. He's a man, right? He's a normal man, because you almost believe priests and nuns are above human or something when you're in those schools. I said, he's a man, right? Okay. How did he get to be where he's at? How did he get to the point where he can communicate with God? But I can't that way. And how did he learn to do it? And how did God pick him? Those kind of questions that really go through your head. And when you're starting to wake up spiritually, you really start to ask those questions. But the funny thing is nothing against the religion, because it works for a lot of people, but something didn't work because they wouldn't answer those questions, because they couldn't answer those questions. They didn't know how to. Because I was asking Jesus kind of questions, the kind of things Jesus taught us. I'm asking about those, and they couldn't quite answer them. They say, be good, tell your sins to this man. And I had nothing against him being holy or not. And I tell you what, I know some priests who are some of the worst people I've ever met. I've known some of the meanest nuns in the world. And I've also known a lot of them who were the most wonderful sweethearts who were there for the right reasons. So they're all mixed up. But I didn't understand how that guy could talk to God and do this stuff and go through the sacraments, but I couldn't. And so that really turned me away from it. When I left high school, I kind of faded away from the church because it didn't satisfy those needs or that understanding that I needed. All right, let's see. So how did the topic of the book come up then? Well, this is kind of interesting because I was writing all this stuff that was very useful, I thought, and sharing it with some friends and some family and stuff. But how did I get to the idea, and what is the topic? First of all, waking up in the spiritual age. What does that mean? Here's what I think. Here's the basic idea, is I think the world, maybe the universe, I don't know, is changing. I think there's a lifting of the vibrational speed, or however you want to talk it, however you want to say it, is raising itself up. I think we're all on that raising that's going on. In fact, I think most of you that are here, because of the awareness, that's the big key to me. Because you're aware of some of this, you're kind of leading that. Have you ever asked yourself, why in the world did I, of all my friends, get interested in this sort of topics? Why do I read these books, watch these videos, go to these meetings, go to conferences? Why do I do that? And if you have friends that have no interest, but you do, you're probably wondering, am I a weirdo? Am I strange? And yes, you are, but besides that, why do I do that? And that's what I'd ask myself the whole time I was growing up, because I sensed this sort of stuff, but I didn't understand it. So it came to me when I started understanding how guides work with you, that ideas that pop into your head that seemingly come from nowhere, and that can be really small little things or can be huge things. When those ideas start hitting in my head, and I realized it was spirit guides talking to me, or my higher self, or however you want to look at it, I don't care what terms, I realized there's a lot of people waking up right now, and a lot of people who don't have access to this kind of a group, or to a meeting, or to, in some cases, even books. They don't know where to look, or they just haven't found it, and no one to discuss it with. So those kind of people, I thought, seems like there's a lack of information for those very first awakening people. And there's a lot of great information in all the books here. And a lot of it does fit them. But I didn't see much in the way of specific books aimed at those newly awakened people who are just sensing things for the first time. Some things might be happening to them, around them, to people around them. But more than anything, it's a gut kind of feeling that there's something going on that I'm missing. Or there's something going on that I feel and I sense, but I can't put my hand on it. So that's what this turned into. It's really a book for people just beginning, because that's what I am. I was talking to a couple people yesterday about awakening. How do you define that? First of all, awakening is, I think it's an ongoing thing. I don't think it's something, Eckhart Tolle would disagree with me with this, but Eckhart's not here and he's shorter than I am, so that makes me the boss, right? He's not here. But Eckhart Tolle, if you know who he is, he's a great spiritual leader. I mean, he's really amazing. But he writes books that are kind of hard to decipher sometimes. They're kind of high-level stuff. And I have several of them, and I've read them and everything. But they don't really make sense to somebody who's just beginning this sort of journey. And I thought something needed to be there for that. Eckhart Tolle says that he, one night, became fully enlightened. He awoke. Something had happened in London on a bench, I believe. He's sleeping on a bench overnight and something happened. And that may be true. But I think most of it's an ongoing thing that starts sometime where you become aware of something. And it may be simmering underneath for years and years and years that you know, man, there's something happening here. I can feel it. So I think it's an ongoing thing. And I've been that way since I was a kid, but not... I did a big leap that came up about 3 or 4 years ago, like I said, when I went to that meeting with spiritual-minded folks, the discussion group. That became very useful. That really opened the channels up. And then I started keeping the journal, and that went from there. So, if you're awakening, well, let's define what that means. Mostly it's an awareness of that there is more to life. We're missing out on something. There's a whole other layers of existence that we've been taught. Again, I have nothing against religions, but religions have often taught us to still that, put that away, don't think for yourself. Religions, oh boy, some of you may be angry. Religions are for lazy people. What I mean by that, and it's not all religions, and it's what I'm saying is some religions insist they do the thinking for you and then feed it to you. You don't think. I know some of the people who feel they're the holiest people in the world who are exactly that way. My Bible says this, and they interpret it the way they want. Again, nothing against the Bible. If you really read it in a spiritual sense, it's a wonderful, wonderful book. But sometimes the religion part of it stopped them from thinking. And the reason I said they're lazy is they allow somebody else to tell them. And that doesn't help you grow. If you want to grow spiritually, your journey is by yourself. And it is, of course, you can work with groups. That really helps us all lift up. But the journey itself is personal within, and having a priest or anybody else do it for you. I don't think that works in the true sense of spirituality.